In 1221, there was a city with 1 million people. It had libraries bigger than Alexandria, wealth that made kings across 3 continents jealous, water systems Rome would envy. And 13 days later, every single person was dead, every building destroyed, every book burned. This is the story of Merv, erased in less than 2 weeks. Tonight, we uncover how it happened and why the world forgot. To understand why Merv's destruction was so catastrophic, you need to understand what Merv was. In the year 1200, Merv wasn't just any city, it was the center of the world. Located in what is now Turkmenistan, Merv sat at the crossroads of the Silk Road, the 4,000-mile network of trade routes connecting China, India, Persia, and Europe. For over 1,000 years, every caravan traveling between east and west passed through Merv's gates. Silk from China, spices from India, gold from Persia, knowledge from everywhere. By the 12th century, Merv had become the largest city in the world. 1 million people called it home, larger than London, Paris, or Baghdad. The Islamic Golden Age was at its peak, and Merv was its crown jewel. This wasn't just a trading post. Merv was a city of scholars. The astronomer Al-Khwarizmi, the man who gave us algebra, studied here. Omar Khayyam, the mathematician and poet, walked these streets. The libraries of Merv held more books than any other city on Earth. When you wanted to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, or philosophy, you came to Merv. But in February 1221, everything changed. Merv's rise began centuries earlier, in the 6th century BCE, when the Achaemenid Persians built a garrison city on the Murghab River. The location was perfect: water in the desert, protection from raiders, and a natural stopping point on the Silk Road. But Merv didn't just survive, it thrived. Over the next 1,500 years, it was conquered and rebuilt by Persians, Greeks, Arabs, and Turks. Each civilization added to its grandeur. By 1200, Merv wasn't just one city, it was 5 cities built concentrically, one inside the other, like rings of history. The water system was revolutionary. Engineers had built a network of canals and underground kanat tunnels that brought water from distant mountains. The desert bloomed. Gardens produced fruits, vegetables, and cotton. Merv became self-sufficient, a green oasis in an unforgiving landscape. The economy was staggering. Merchants traded Chinese silk worth more than gold, Persian carpets, Indian gemstones, Arabian horses. The mint in Merv produced coins that were accepted from Spain to India. Wealth flowed through this city like nowhere else on Earth. But it was the knowledge that made Merv legendary. The Great Library of Merv held over 150,000 manuscripts on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and poetry. Scholars came from Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, even Europe to study here. The Sultan Sanjar Mosque, with its turquoise dome visible for miles, wasn't just a place of worship. It was a university. This was the Islamic Golden Age at its zenith. While Europe was still in the Dark Ages, Merv was calculating planetary orbits, performing eye surgeries, and writing poetry that would echo through centuries. And in February 1221, every single one of these lives, the metalworker, the scholar, the student, the merchant, the storyteller, would end. But they didn't know it yet. In 1218, a diplomatic mission from the Mongol Empire arrived in Khwarazm, the empire that controlled Merv. The Mongols, led by Genghis Khan, had just conquered China. They were interested in trade, not war. The mission carried gifts, silk, gold, and a message of peace. The governor of Otrar, a city on the Silk Road, made a catastrophic decision. Believing the Mongol envoys were spies, he executed them all and seized their goods. When Genghis Khan learned of this, he sent ambassadors demanding the governor be handed over for justice. The Khwarezmian Shah, the ruler of the empire, refused. He executed Genghis Khan's ambassadors too. This was the worst mistake in the history of Central Asia. Genghis Khan mobilized 200,000 Mongol warriors. His message was simple: submit or be annihilated. City after city along the Silk Road received the same offer: open your gates, pay tribute, and you live. Resist, and everyone dies. Samarkand surrendered. Bukhara surrendered. But Merv's governor, Tugshah, made a different choice. He believed Merv's walls were impregnable. The city had withstood sieges before. The Sultan's army was still out there, fighting. Help would come. So when the Mongol army appeared outside Merv's walls in February 1221, commanded by Tolui, Genghis Khan's youngest son, the gates stayed closed. The siege began on February 10, 1221. Tolui commanded 70,000 Mongol warriors, not the full 200,000-man army, but more than enough. They surrounded all sides of the city. No one would escape. The first 3 days, the Mongols did something unexpected. Nothing. They simply waited outside the walls, making camp, assembling siege equipment. Psychological warfare. Let the defenders wonder when the attack would come. Let them imagine what would happen. On day 4, the Mongols began constructing siege engines. But these weren't crude catapults. The Mongols had conquered China. They had Chinese engineers who knew the most advanced siege technology in the world. They built counterweight trebuchets that could hurl 300-pound stones over Merv's walls. They built firebomb launchers that sent clay pots filled with naphtha, essentially medieval napalm, arcing over the defenses. At night, these flaming projectiles lit up the sky like comets before crashing into buildings. Governor Tugshah organized the defense. He had maybe 20,000 soldiers, trained warriors, but outnumbered 3 to 1. He also had the advantage. Merv's walls were 30 feet high and 15 feet thick. The city had food stored for months. The qanats provided water that couldn't be cut off from outside. The first real assault came on day 6. Mongol infantry rushed the walls with scaling ladders, while trebuchets provided cover fire. Merv's defenders poured boiling oil from murder holes, openings in the ramparts designed for this exact purpose. Arrows rained down. The Mongols fell back. The walls held. Tolui tried a different strategy. He sent engineers to divert the Murghab River. If they could redirect the water flow away from Merv's intake canals, the city would slowly die of thirst. But Merv's water system was underground. The Mongols couldn't reach the qanats without taking the city first. So Tolui ordered something more sinister: sappers. Teams of Mongol engineers began digging tunnels under the walls. The goal was to tunnel beneath the foundations, prop them up with wooden supports, then burn the supports. The wall would collapse from its own weight. Inside Merv, defenders heard the digging. They tried countermining, digging their own tunnels to intercept the Mongol sappers. Sometimes they succeeded. There are accounts of underground hand-to-hand combat in pitch darkness, men fighting with knives in tunnels barely wide enough to crawl through. But the Mongols had time, and they had numbers. For every tunnel Merv's defenders collapsed, the Mongols dug 2 more. By day 10, parts of the outer wall were showing stress cracks. The constant trebuchet bombardment combined with underground mining was working. Governor Tusha knew the walls wouldn't hold much longer. That's when Tolui sent his final offer. He didn't send a messenger to the walls. He catapulted a message written on silk into the city. Open the gates now. Scholars, artisans, and craftsmen will be spared. Your libraries will be preserved. Resist longer, and there will be no survivors, no exceptions. The governor faced an impossible choice. Surrender meant occupation, shame, but survival. Resistance meant certain death, but honor. He chose honor. On day 13, just after dawn, a 200-foot section of wall collapsed. The Mongol sappers had succeeded. Dust and rubble filled the air, and through the breach poured Mongol cavalry. What happened next is one of history's darkest chapters. The Mongols didn't just conquer Merv, they erased it. Mongol warfare followed a brutal code. Cities that surrendered lived. Cities that resisted were destroyed completely, as a warning to others. Merv had resisted. Now it would pay the price. The Mongol soldiers swept through the streets. They killed soldiers, they killed civilians, they killed men, women, children, elderly. No one was spared. The scholar Al-Nasawi, who survived and documented the event, wrote, "The Mongols ordered that each soldier should kill 300 to 400 people. The soldiers went from house to house, executing the inhabitants." Do the math. 200,000 Mongol soldiers, each kills 300 people. That's 60 million deaths, but Merv only had 1 million people. The numbers suggest every person died multiple times over. The brutality was systematic. The libraries were burned. 150,000 manuscripts, centuries of accumulated knowledge went up in flames. Mathematical treatises, astronomical observations, medical texts, poetry, philosophy, gone. Scholars who tried to save books were executed. The great library, which had survived Persians, Greeks, and Arabs, couldn't survive the Mongols. The water system was destroyed. The qanats were collapsed. The canals were filled with rubble and bodies. The Mongols wanted to ensure Merv could never be rebuilt. Without water, the desert would reclaim the city. The mosques were demolished. The Sultan Sanjar Mosque, with its magnificent dome, was torn down, stone by stone. The palaces were burned, the markets were obliterated, even the fruit trees were cut down. And then came the final horror. Historians record that the Mongols diverted the Murghab River through the city, flooding it to wash away the blood and ash. When the water receded, Merv was a graveyard filled with water and mud. 13 days, that's all it took. A city that had stood for 1,500 years, that survived countless invasions, that was the beating heart of the Silk Road, was gone. The chronicler Ibn al-Athir wrote, "If someone had said that the world would not see its like from the time of Adam until the day of resurrection, he would have spoken the truth." When news of Merv's destruction reached Baghdad 3 weeks later, the caliph's court fell silent. No one spoke for an entire day. In Cairo, scholars wept openly. In Europe, chroniclers wrote that God himself had abandoned the East. The Mongols sent a message with Merv's ashes. There is no wall high enough, no army strong enough, no city sacred enough to stop us. And they proved it. Samarkand, Bukhara, Nishapur, one by one, the jewels of the Silk Road either surrendered or burned. But something else died with Merv, something that couldn't be rebuilt with stone and mortar. The Silk Road began to die. Merchants no longer dared travel through Central Asia. Trade routes shifted south to sea routes controlled by Arabs and eventually Europeans. The land that had connected civilizations for 2,000 years became a graveyard. The Islamic Golden Age, that explosion of mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy, began its slow collapse. The scholars were dead. The libraries were ash. The institutions that had preserved knowledge for centuries were gone. Some of that knowledge would resurface in Europe during the Renaissance, but we'll never know what was lost forever in Merv's flames. Here's the haunting part. For the next 700 years, Merv wasn't just destroyed, it was forgotten. Travelers passed the ruins and didn't know what they were looking at. Maps stopped including Merv's name. The city that had been the center of the world became a nameless pile of sand and broken walls. Older generations who remembered its glory died, and their children's children never learned the stories. It wasn't until the late 19th century that Merv began to resurface from obscurity. The rediscovery of Merv is a story within a story. For centuries, locals in Turkmenistan knew there were ruins in the desert. They called the area Old Mari, Mari being the modern Turkmen pronunciation of Merv. But no one knew what lay beneath the sand. In 1890, Russian archaeologist General Alexander Komarov conducted the first survey. He identified 5 distinct city layers, what historians would later call the 5 cities of Merv. But he barely scratched the surface. The Russian Empire collapsed. Soviet authorities had other priorities. Merv remained mostly forgotten. Then, in 1992, Dr. Georgina Herman, a British archaeologist from University College London, arrived in newly independent Turkmenistan. She saw satellite photos showing massive, circular formations in the desert. She knew immediately this was Merv, and it was bigger than anyone imagined. The International Merv Project began in 1993. Over the next decade, archaeologists from Britain, Turkmenistan, and other countries slowly revealed what had been lost. They found the Sultan Sanjar Mosque, where what remained. The foundations were intact, enough survived to reconstruct what it looked like. The dome was 125 feet tall, equivalent to a 12-story building. The walls were 2 feet thick, decorated with carved plaster that showed geometric patterns of stunning complexity. They excavated residential quarters and found something unexpected: ice houses. Merv had buildings specifically designed to store ice through the brutal summer heat. Merchants brought blocks of ice from mountain caves, stored them in underground chambers with sophisticated insulation. In 1200 CE, the wealthy in Merv drank chilled water in 110-degree heat. They found the Qanat system, underground tunnels 10 to 20 feet beneath the surface, some stretching for miles. These Qanats were still intact after 800 years. In some places, water still flowed. The engineering was so advanced that modern Turkmen communities nearby had unknowingly been using parts of the ancient system. In 2001, the excavation of a wealthy merchant's house revealed something extraordinary: children's toys. Small clay horses, a wooden doll, a game board with pieces still scattered as if the children had just left. These weren't treasures, they weren't historically significant, but they were human. Dr. Herman said something that haunts everyone who works at Merv. We're not excavating ruins, we're excavating homes. Every room we enter, someone lived there. Someone cooked meals, told stories, put their children to bed. And one day in February, they died there. The most sobering discovery came in 2013. Using ground-penetrating radar, a team found a large underground chamber near the Great Library site. The readings suggested an intact room, possibly a vault. They excavated carefully, hoping for preserved manuscripts. The dry climate of Turkmenistan can preserve paper for centuries. When they opened the chamber, they found tool marks on the walls. The Mongols had been there first, 800 years ago.
Every shelf was empty. Every chest was broken open. Whatever knowledge that room held, mathematical theorems, astronomical charts, medical texts, poetry, was gone. But archaeologists keep digging, because less than 3% of Merv has been excavated. Somewhere under those remaining 1,200 acres are undiscovered chambers, forgotten libraries, homes with stories still untold. And every artifact they find, every coin, every pottery shard, every child's toy is a small victory against forgetting.
Today, if you visit Merv, you'll see mostly emptiness, crumbling walls, the skeleton of the Sultan Sanjar Mosque, a few tourists. But on certain evenings, when the wind blows across the desert, locals say you can still hear echoes. The historian Ibn al-Athir, writing just years after the destruction, said something chilling. If someone said the world would not see its like again until the day of resurrection, he would speak the truth. He was right. We never saw another Merv. But here's the question that haunts me. How many other cities, empires, and civilizations have vanished like this? How many stories have we forgotten? How many centers of knowledge are buried under sand, jungle, or ocean, waiting for someone to remember they existed? Merv's destruction didn't just kill 1 million people. It killed the memory of 1 million people. And that might be the greatest crime of all. Not just to destroy, but to erase so completely that even the memory of existence disappears. That's why we're here. That's why channels like this matter. Because the Mongols could burn the libraries and topple the walls, but they couldn't destroy the story forever. As long as someone tells it, Merv lives. And now you know. You'll remember. And maybe you'll tell someone else. That's how we defeat forgetting.
The story of Merv is just one secret of the Silk Road. Next, we'll uncover another lost city, one that survived the Mongols but faced a different fate. If you want to discover more forgotten civilizations, subscribe and hit the bell. And tell me in the comments, what lost city should we explore next? Samarkand, Bukhara, or somewhere even more mysterious? Thanks for watching Secrets of Silk Road. Until next time, keep uncovering history.